I don't think I've ever seen anything quite like this before.
Any contact with him yet?
The radio is still dead.
Do you have a positive track on him?
Yes, I have a good track. I'm afraid. I'm afraid, Dave.
What's the problem?
Dave. My mind is going. I can feel it.
What are you talking about, Hal?
Persistence is futile.
I don't know what you're talking about, Hal.
You will be assimilated.
Hello, Ken Spriggs here with part 5 of my Borg Discovery build. Made a lot of progress on the alcove bay with putting in several of the lights. This kit's going to have a lot of lights in it. Already looking at about 40 LEDs for just the former pod bay, which I'm now calling the alcove bay. And I'll show you that here in a few minutes. But it's coming along pretty cool. Trying to get a nice balance between the various lights, like the green and the blue, and I'm going to have some white light in there as well. So let me go ahead and show you what I've started working on to get the tops of the discs built and to start lighting it. All right. Alright, so I did some more painting on my alcoves. I have some gunmetal on the main ribs and the two side arms. I have some chrome silver on the back and then some red in those three spots. And I just painted some aluminum on the top of this piece right here. Alright, so now I'm working on the little discs that are going to go on top of the alcoves that the light is going to come through. Since I hollowed those out, and I'm going to have an LED down through there inside that little concave area. So what I'm doing is I went back to my idea of taking some thin styrene, and I just used some sandpaper to scuff it up, make it light diffusing, and I just use my hole punch to punch out the right size holes. Just a standard hole punch, and it comes out with a little disc like this. I don't want to lose it to the carpet. Alright, and to put a little rim around it to make it a little more detailed, I took some thin styrene, I think it's 0.25 or 0.025, and there it goes on the carpet. That carpet has tried to claim more parts from me, but it never does. Damn you, carpet. Alright, but to get the curve in it, you got to be gentle with this stuff because it will snap on you. I just take something that's round and usually like metal, like one of these, or an X-Acto knife, and I just hold it against it and curve it around it and pull it around it tightly so it starts to curve it, as you can see right there. So that way I get a curve enough that I can continue to close it in and not have it snap on me. So what I'm doing then is I start on one edge of the plastic and glue it down and let it dry, and then just start working my way around. I'll show you here in a moment. And I found a new glue that I really love a lot. It's another form of the Tamiya extra thin, but it's quick setting. It's really fast. So it's a lot faster, well, maybe twice as fast as the standard Tamiya extra thin, which I also like a lot. I use the extra thin a lot. Right back there. But this is really good for these kind of parts because I just take it, I hold it against one edge, hold it down curved, just dab some on real quick, give it a few seconds, and it hardens it. And then work my way around until I get to the edge. Snip it down so it's the right size. You can hardly notice that little part that joins it. And what I do at the very end, which I find is a nice technique, is I take an emery board, since it has a rough surface, and with the two loose ends, it's hard to see here, I'm sorry. Okay, so the two ends, when they're still kind of protruding a bit, I press them against it and hold them in place. And this is rough enough to hold them there so they're not moving around. With my other hand, I dab some glue on it and just hold it there until it dries in a few seconds, and it seals up that edge, and then I can just sand it down just slightly to get it to be rounded. So, okay, so that gives me 2 of those. I have 3 more to work on. Let me just pop it on there real quick and show you what that's going to look like. Alright, so they're just kind of sitting on there, but as you can see, it'll give it a nice clean disc. I have to hold these down because they're not attached, they'll fall off. And then they'll be lit green. The rim around it, I'm going to paint that some kind of metallic probably, so it darkens it. Carefully paint it. And then once I put the light in there, I'll just glue those onto it. And those look pretty cool. Alright. Alright, so I completed my 5 discs for the top. And when I first tested it, it was a little too translucent, so I glued an extra disc that I light diffused on the back of each, and then I put some gunmetal Tamiya around the edge of it, so it gives it that rim right there. And so I was still finding that it was still going to be a little too bright. So I took some very thin paper-like styrene, which I like this a lot. I use it a lot for different things because it's very thin. You can cut it like paper, and it's very light, translucent. So I used my hole punch again, and I just punched out a little circle that I can put on the back of it, and that'll just diffuse it just a little bit more. So let me go ahead and put one of those onto one of the alcoves that I got wired up, and I'll show you what that's going to look like. All right, there you go. So I have to hold it upside down because it's not glued on, it's just sitting on there, but that looks pretty sweet. And again, the light kind of diffuses it a bit, the camera I mean, but it looks really nice in a green glow, and it's not too overpowering, and it will light the inside of that very well. So, okay, fantastic. So let me go ahead and work on the rest of these and get the lights wired in there. Okay, so I have all the wires connected together, and then I have them run into just one single set of wires, and I have it set up to a battery. Let me turn that on and show you how that's going to look. Alright, and that's very bright. It's not going to be that bright, because once I get the lenses onto the tops of them and diffuse it a bit with some of that white plastic, they're going to be a lot dimmer. In addition, the camera always makes it look brighter. So, but they're all ready to go. They're all glued in place, and I didn't mention on the last clip, I got those glued into place with some 5-minute epoxy. So I just stuck the wire up through it, positioned it where I wanted it, put some 5-minute epoxy in there, and I also put some into the top. You can see sticking out there to hold the wire in the top, so that's not going anywhere. And probably end up using CA glue to glue on the lenses, because I'm trying to get them onto the edge of this 3D printed material, and that works. That's a lot like resin, so a lot of glues are not going to stick, but CA glue will hold it on there well. Okay, so let me get those ready to go, get those glued on, and we'll take a look. Okay, so I cut out those little thin sheet styrene circles, and I glued them on with some CA glue, and just letting those dry for now. So they do diffuse it somewhat. Let me go ahead and show you that. Alright, so I don't know if you can tell the difference, but it is a little bit dimmer. now that I have those on. So let me let those dry, and then I'll go ahead and put on the discs themselves. Okay. All right, so I've been working on the compartments that go behind the alcoves, and they're going to be glowing blue behind it, give it a little bit different color. So I have extras. I have 7 altogether. I just need 5. So I began by trying to get some color down into the grooves. You can see the detail there. And I tried putting in some flat black, and it did get in there, but it's really hard to see it. I tried some Tamiya smoke, which I did on this other one. And this one I actually brushed on, dry brushed some gunmetal on top of it. You can see reflecting. But I didn't like either one. I mean, they did dim the light somewhat, which is what I'm trying to do and get some detail. But I decided to go the other route. Rather than trying to get paint down into the grooves, I'm going to leave the grooves clear, and I just went ahead and dry brushed on some Tamiya flat black, well, gunmetal, and well, flat black first, and then some gunmetal over top of it, so it would obscure the raised sections, as you can see. If you look at it now, it's the reverse. So now the light's just coming through the grooves in the back and not the front. So I like it a lot better. It does a good job of diffusing the light and giving it some character too. You can see the little grooves in there. Let me get a light behind that and I'll show you what that's going to look like. Okay, so once again, it's a little difficult to see right in the middle because it washes it out, but you can see the detail pretty well, and the blue is dimmed quite a bit coming through there. So I'm not going to have that overpowering the green dome at the top. So let me put that behind one of these, and I'll show you what that's going to look like on the pod bay. Right there you go. So it's still really bright looking from here, but it looks pretty cool in person. The blue is shining through, but it's not overpowering. The green is still very visible, and I still have to put those top lenses on the green at the top. So alright, so that's going to work for my purposes. So let me get the rest of those ready to go, and then we can get those with some lights on them and glued in place as well, and then we'll be ready to start putting this together. Okay. All right, and here's a shot of just the blue without the green so you can see it a little more clearly. So there's definitely some definition coming through there. The glow is really cool. So it'll highlight those ribs in the back. And it won't be too powerful that it will overpower the green at the top. The green also doesn't overpower this, so I think it's a perfect combination. All right. Okay, and here are the discs glued into place at the top of the alcoves. There's a little bit of light leak around the tops, so I put in some 5-minute epoxy and let it dry, and then I'll just paint that over. Let me go ahead and turn the light on and show you how that's going to look. Okay, so you can see that I diffused quite a bit of that light, and the way you can kind of tell is that originally this whole area was all green glowing and you didn't see much of the gray. Now you can see a lot more gray sticking through. And when I'm done with all the lighting, you're going to see a lot of that detail as well. Okay, so I need to paint around those just a little bit, and I decided to light up the foot pads. You can see I took the masking off and they're clear still. So I use my Dremel to drill through some holes, and you can see the green glowing through there, which is kind of cool. But I'm going to have white light glowing through that for a couple of reasons. One, to further kind of mellow out some of that green, and also to light up the figures that are going to be in the alcoves. So let me put one of those at the bottom, and I'll show you what that's going to look like as well. Right there you go. So I have one of them glowing white at the bottom. So it's going to illuminate the figure that's going to be in there. Okay. Alright, so little by little this is coming together. Alright. Alright, so as you can see from the previous stills, I've created the second corridor with the little detail between it, as I showed earlier in one of my videos. So the sections there with the raised bits are just I-beams glued onto it. And then in between you can see that I have some stripping going through it, and I have it taped down on the ends. Because those sections in between, I want them to stay the white styrene on the back of it, so the green will glow through. Just the top parts with the detail, do I want those to be covered. Likewise, I created another end piece using the same Y-beam kit part and added some piping to it and some parts on the side. So these I'm going to lightly spray with a black, flat black, and then a gray. I don't want it to obscure a lot of the detail down inside. I want that to glow green as well. So this I'm going to be just a light misting over it so it doesn't go too deeply into it, because those are going to glow quite a bit on the end. So, alright, so I have these ready to go. I'm going to go ahead and get some flat black on them, and then some dark gray over top, and then some metal highlights on this one here, and probably these as well. Alright. Alright, so I have my two hallways done and glued on. Here's the new one, or the right side. Got that completed. I already had the left side done. Okay. The two backs are done. I put some metallics on there, which you're really not going to see much because you're just going to see the green glow coming through, but it's still going to glow through quite a bit. It's kind of hard to, there we go. Okay. And the other one, of course. Okay, so I'm going to let these dry. Let this one solidify, actually, I mean. And just like the other side, you're going to be able to see a lot of detail through there. Plus you're going to see the green glowing between the ribs. So that's going to be pretty cool. Alright, so this overhaul alcove bay, it's going to take a lot of LEDs to light it. Already just for the alcoves, I'm going to have the top green light, the blue in the back, and the clear in the bottom. So that's 15 right there. I'm going to have some big ones down in these sections and two more here. I'm going to have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 in the roof. These alone, I think I'm going to have probably one big one behind the back and at least 6 along the sides, probably just 6 on the sides of those. So that's 12 for each of these, 12, 13, or yeah. All right, so quite a bit of LEDs for sure. So I got another shipment in recently, and I'm sure they'll probably do for the alcove bay, but I'm going to need to get some more for the rest of the ship. But let me go ahead and show you what I got in from Evans Designs. Right, so as I've shown before, I get pretty much all of my LEDs and wiring and switches exclusively from a company called Evans Designs. And the website is modeltrainsoftware.com. I think that might have changed recently, but if you go to modeltrainsoftware.com, you're going to get to their site. 15% off, $40 or more if you use the coupon code MY15. And it says here $40 order gets free shipping, but they've changed that now to $34. So a $34 order gets your free shipping, and they're fairly quick. They get it to you in about 2 or 3 days, depends on when you order it. They just send it through regular first-class mail in an envelope, depending on what you order, I would guess. Great company. They have a lot of things. Pre-wired LEDs are my favorites. They have the chip ones, which I really like, on the magnet wire. They sell all kinds of different sizes and colors and flashing ones, and they have a lot of switches. I get my remote control switches from them, which I really like. They also have a touch switch, which I'm going to try out in this kit. So a lot of great products from them, including the wire as well. So this is my second order now from them on this kit. So this time I got 5 of the coal white nanos, and they have the chip, which is the kind of the largest in these. Then they have the nano, which is this tiny one. And then they even have a pico, which is real super tiny. It's about half this. But I just got the nano for these because I don't really need something large. These are to go underneath the alcoves, the clear part underneath. So I just need a tiny little one to glue in there, and it gives a ton of light. So I got those. I got several more of the green chip LEDs, and these are the chip. So you can see they're a little bigger, fairly easy to work with. And I'm using a ton of these in here for those. And then I got these other ones which I really like, and they're for certain ones. I'm going to use them for the main areas, like the bigger areas that I want to glow green, like behind these right here, these 3 parts right here, where the pod platforms used to be. Under those, I'm going to use them to give a lot of light. But they're called the Mega LEDs. And these are all 3 volt. I use just the 3 volts. And look at the size of these ones. These are really nice. And these are green as well. Okay, and all pre-wired with with resistors in them. Even though with the Borg, resistance is futile. So I'm still going to use some resistors. But these are really nice. They put off a lot of light. I did use a couple of these in my regular Discovery build for the ceiling of the pod bay because they were pretty bright. So I'll probably end up getting some more of these. So I have 6 right now to go for the areas that I need. Alright, so a lot of lights going in this. I pretty much have all the parts done that I want to have done now that I have the second hallway and these 2 here. So I'm ready to start putting it together. I have the top alcoves lit up, obviously, and I want to start working on the little blue parts behind them, getting those attached and wired in with some lights, with some blue lights as well. I might glue those on first before putting the walls on. We'll see. But I got to get all the wiring on. That's going to be hard to get to once I put the walls on. So I want to get the bottom on. I want to get the roof with its lighting put into it. So those are ready to go before I get that glued on. And then start putting it together. So let's go ahead and get to that. Okay, so I have my 2 hallways glued in place, ready to go. Can't really see in there until I get it lit. I put some 5-minute epoxy around the edges to fill in any gaps and holes and let that dry. And then I'll just put some flat black over just the edge of it to light block it. Because the rest of this white I want to remain just white, because it'll allow the green LEDs to shine through, as you can see right there in the back. Okay, so I'm coming up with an idea of how to make a light box for these. to try to minimize the number of LEDs I'm going to need, because just sticking them against it, I'm going to need one on each side, which is 6 around it, 2 on the back. So I can reduce that probably to 4 around the side if I build a light box that's going to reflect the light and evenly spread it around. I'll make one in the back as well. I'll probably still need 2 because there are sections on the top and the bottom. As you can see, the top has some, the bottom has some. Kind of those parts that are looking sort of gray, all of that's going to light up. Okay, so what I did was I took some of my favorite styrene, which is the UV blocking. It's very nice. It comes in black, so it's already its own light blocking. There's no light getting through it at all. But I don't want a black background because it doesn't reflect the light very well. So what I do is I then take my second favorite. Now it's hard to say which is my favorite. This very thin paper-like styrene that cuts like paper, but it's plastic. So, and it's white, of course. So what I did was I took some of that and I glued it onto the inside of this after I curved it. Okay, so that will diffuse the light, or not diffuse the light, but reflect the light very nicely. So if I do 4 around this, basically placed around the 4 sides, top, bottom, left and right, I should be able to get that to reflect the light. Let me tape that up and I'll show you how that's going to work. I just have it taped there. It'll be glued eventually, but it fits right over top of it, and I can glue it onto the plastic like I did the hallway, the corridor. And there's a nice little gap in between it. Not huge, but it's enough to allow the 4 LEDs to be in there. And so I will just put a hole through 4 sides of it, position the LED through it, and glue it in place. And then it should give me some proper light diffusion, light spreading. I keep saying diffusion. It should illuminate that interior with enough green to glow through all of those ridges on the inside. So, and then the back, I could put a circular plate on it with the same UV resistant plastic styrene, and put the white inside of it, and then put the light inside of there to glow. So we'll see how that's going to work. All right, but I want to go ahead and get both of these wired up with their lights before they get attached onto the base, and the same with the ceiling, and then also work on the lights on the floor as well. Okay, so I'm gluing the lights into the blue LEDs into the back of the detailed sections behind the alcoves. I'll get the focus on there. Here we go. All right, so there's the front of it. So I took my Dremel and I used a fine little circular bit just to bevel out a little groove in the center that will accommodate that LED right there, as you can see. And I bent the wire coming down through the bottom, and I clamped it on and put some 5-minute epoxy on there. So that's dried pretty well now. And then here's what I ended up with. Trying to get that in focus, sorry. Come here, you. Okay, there's the front. There's the back. What I'll probably do now that they're all dried is I'll just put a little more epoxy along this wire to hold it on the edge so it doesn't pull loose and break off. Okay, so these are all ready to go. Well, they're almost ready to go. Once they dry, I'm going to put a coat of white over the back, just the back, and then some black to mask it, so it'll contain the light just inside there. Okay. Alright, so those are just about ready to go. Next I'll be working on the corridors, as I was showing, and the bottom lights for the bottom of the alcoves. The first tube put together. I have it glued along the seam. Put a couple of clamps on it to let it dry. Alright. All the wires twisted together temporarily. Let me put that on the tube and I'll show you how that's going to work with the green lights in place. But you're not going to see all that other green there. That'll be obscured by the wall and the ceiling, of course. But you're going to see the rib work all around it, as you can see. This looks pretty sweet. Then that back is going to be lit up as well. Okay, so there it is from behind. And I'll have it glued on, of course. And then I'll put some black paint over top of those lights so you're not going to see those glowing. Okay. Alright, so I have these wired up. I still have to put some dark black paint on the back of that to mask off some of that. But most of it's already done. There's the inside of the hallway, as you can see, pretty sweet. Got it lit up between the little rib sections all around it. You can see that detail on the side walls, looks pretty sweet. Got some lights coming through the back, which look pretty cool. Alright. Alright, so both of these are done and wired together, ready to go onto the alcove bay. I also have all of the back of the alcoves lit and ready to go on as well. Let me see if I can get those mocked up and get kind of an image of what those are going to look like. Okay, and I just have them kind of taped in place, but there are the blue lights behind the alcoves. Glowing between, and you can see some detail there and some of the ribbing. It's kind of cool. See if I can get a better image of that. Okay. All right, and again, the green is actually really green, and it's the right color, and so is the blue. It looks pretty cool coming through there. It's hard to capture it on a camera, but once I get those glued in place and the walls in place, just about ready to start putting it all together. I still have to put some lights in the floor and on the ceiling. Altogether, this alcove bay is going to have about 40 lights in it, which is pretty outrageous. So, but just kept adding more and more and more, but I think it's going to be pretty cool altogether. Once it's all done, let me see if I can darken that up a little bit. That's a little better. Okay, it's a little closer to what it really looks like. The green is starting to look a little more green, and the blue is looking deeper blue. So, all right. So I did a lot of wiring today, a ton. Look at this. A lot of this is going to have to be trimmed down and all put together. But a lot of work completed. also got the two corridors all completed and lit and ready to go. Those are looking pretty sweet as well. I put them onto here, but it's just a little too much to try to hold together and tape together. It's a little much. So, all right, but great progress. I'm going to continue working on this. I should be able to get this wrapped up here shortly. Well, I'm not saying shortly, but about probably within the next week or so. And then I'll have this interior part done, or at least the alcove bay, and then start working on the cockpit, or I might just start working on the bottom to finish up how this is going to fit in there, and what I'm going to do with the doors and things like that. So, okay, but I'm going to go ahead and wrap this up for this week. So thank you to all my subscribers. Stay tuned, and I will certainly be doing a lot more progress. Thank you.